Wouldn't it be great if there were a way to lower our heating and cooling costs, while at the same time lessen our dependence on foreign oil? Well, actually, there is. It's called geothermal technology. So on today's show, we'll learn about the components that make up these incredibly efficient systems as we catch up with our geothermal specialist, Brian Erlob from Geocomfort. Oh, beautiful summer day out here. At least the sun isn't blazing down on us, but at the end of the day, the sun is really what's going to drive this new geothermal system?
Yes, Stu, what we've got here is we've got a retrofit application out here in a rural setting, and we've got this beautiful home. They've obviously got some acreage here, and this is an existing home, about 8 years old, but they've opted to go with a geothermal system to increase their overall efficiency and lower their utilities.
Really? It's only 8 years old, yet they're replacing their traditional forced air system with geothermal. You find that's a trend of late?
Yeah, absolutely it is, because number one, we've got the federal tax credit. There's a 30% tax credit on geothermal systems, which is uncapped on the total system cost through 2016. So that's really been driving the installation of our systems.
Sure, and that 30% can play a big role in helping a homeowner with the installation cost of a geothermal system, but there's a lot more benefits than just the federal tax credit.
Well, absolutely, there's a lot of benefits. Number one, with energy savings, which translates into cost savings on your utilities, but also there's many other benefits like comfort. They're definitely more comfortable systems. They're more reliable, they last longer. Your energy source, your investment out here in the yard is a one-time cost. It doesn't deteriorate. So the benefit of that is you only buy it once.
And not to mention the environmental benefits, because as I look at a geothermal system, it lessens our dependency on foreign oil.
Yeah, absolutely. We are reducing our energy needs, which is also reducing our carbon footprint. And depending on, obviously where the electricity comes from, okay, they're doing their job at greening up the energy sources for electric generation. We're doing our part at the end use, then to also save energy and use less electricity.
Sure, so why not look at an electrical system like geothermal? Because at the end of the day, that's what's driving the system, is the heat stored in the earth, but you're using electricity to flow that heat into the house.
Yeah, absolutely, that's right.
Okay, well, let's focus in on the theory behind geothermal technology. Mentioned the sun is the driving force behind it. Let's start by explaining how you can capture what we call the free energy that's stored down here.
Yeah, definitely. What we've got here, obviously, we've got a nice rural setting, so we dig down here in the yard 6 to 8 feet, and it's about 50 degrees all year round. It does not really change, and that's really stored energy from the sun. So that sun energy is warming the earth. The crust layer of the earth is being warmed by the sun and actually storing that energy like a solar battery. So even when we've got 2 feet of snow here, that energy has been stored in the earth. So what we've got to do then is really just capture that energy and be able to transport it into the home, because again, that is the free renewable energy portion. The sun shines every day.
So the energy is really being stored as heat in the earth, and it has to be below the frost line or about 8 feet down?
Yeah, absolutely. In the wintertime, obviously, we want to be down there below the frost line, and we're talking about heat. So we're moving the heat energy then into the home. But again, it does also cool. So in the summertime, we're actually cooling the house, taking the heat energy and dumping it out here into the nice, cool 50-degree ground.
Okay, so how do you accomplish that goal of capturing that free energy?
Number one, that's through the loop field, which we're going to show here in a little bit, and then we transfer that through a fluid. So we circulate a fluid through the ground loop, and that fluid, as it gets circulated from the house and through the loop, is either picking up heat in the wintertime and bringing it into the home, or it's taking heat from the home and dumping it into the cool ground in the summertime.
Okay, so that makes sense. As the fluid circulates, it becomes the same temperature as the surrounding earth. But that's still only about 50 degrees in the wintertime going into the house. How do you raise it to, say, warm air being distributed through the house? You want about 100 degrees.
Well, that's a great question, because that's really the magic behind it. We've got the 50-degree ground temperature, and we're bringing in that free energy, but then that's where the heat pump comes in, okay, which has to intensify that heat through compression and electrical energy from 50 degrees up to about 100 degrees, so that way we can heat your home to 72 degrees in the wintertime.
Well, it's fabulous technology. I'm anxious to learn more about it. Let's go learn more about the looping options.
Sounds great.
And we'll do that next, when we continue with today's Home Remodeler.
Hi, I'm Johnny Miller with Hopkins County Heating and Air, your local Geocomfort dealer. Geothermal systems have the lowest life cycle cost of all heating and cooling systems on the market today. Lower maintenance costs and longer life expectancies of geothermal units will save you money. Call today at Hopkins County Heating and Air at 825-2750. Hopkins County Heating and Air, your local Geocomfort dealer, featuring the latest in geothermal technology. Geocomfort systems, geothermal made better.
In our last segment, we discussed the theory behind geothermal technology. Now let's continue with Brian Erlob from Geocomfort, who explains more about geothermal looping options.
So is this the geothermal loop pipe that forms the fields?
Yeah, absolutely it is. This is a high-density polyethylene pipe, which is a plastic pipe. And the great thing about plastic pipe in the ground is it doesn't deteriorate, and it's going to last for a long time. There's actually a 50-year warranty on this pipe.
So good peace of mind for the homeowner. Once they install a geothermal loop field, they don't have to worry about it ever failing?
That's right. And the other great thing about it is it has the ability to be fusion welded. What that means is we take all these other loops here that we've got, and we actually tee that into the two pipes that go into the house.
Almost like a manifold?
Yeah, exactly. That's just like a manifold. And we fusion weld those pipes to this pipe, which means it all becomes one piece, and there are no mechanical fittings then that can have a potential leak possibility down the road. So really an excellent, reliable system.
So when the system is done and there's a manifold in place, it looks like there's mechanical joints, but since you melted the piping, fused it together, it all became one continuous loop.
That's exactly right.
Okay, and along the lines of the loops, you mentioned that there are some different options for the homeowner depending on the setting.
Yeah, there are really, and this, as you can see, is a rural setting, and they opted to go with a horizontal loop. And this particular horizontal loop is what we call a slinky. And you can see here the coils of pipe are slinky together. And there's another horizontal loop that's called a racetrack where the pipes are actually laid in a straight line. The horizontal loops are really the most cost effective, but you've got to have the right soil in the land to be able to do that. Okay, you get into the suburban areas, of course, you don't have the property. We can drill vertical loops where we take a traditional drill rig and we'll drill vertically straight into the earth about anywhere from 100 to 300 feet depending on soil conditions, water table, and so forth.
Well, with all these different looping options, ultimately it seems to me it would come down to the design. That must be very important. Who handles that?
Absolutely, that's really the most important part of the process is the design, and the independent contractors would be doing the design, and they should be taking into account the heating and cooling needs of the home. And then they're also going to look at the soil conditions and use a software program to determine, depending on the style of loop that they're going to install, how much pipe to put in the ground and how much ground to cover.
Boy, it seems to me if I'm a homeowner considering geothermal, I want to make sure I take advantage of an experienced contractor and ask the good questions. How experienced are you? How many have you installed? Who's going to design my system?
Yeah, that is really a great question to ask and really the most important part.
You mentioned soil conditions. Does it matter if it's sand, if it's water, is it clay, black dirt?
Yeah, absolutely. There's three real main components to loop field performance. The first one is moisture. We really like moisture in the ground because that helps transfer the energy better. The density of the soil, the more dense, the better. So rock is really good. Heavy clays are great. And of course, then the depth of the loop is also important because we've got to get below the frost. We've got to get to that stable temperature where we can capture that energy and bring that into the home.
Again, it seems like it all comes back to the design and the experience of the designer to making sure that you have a worry-free system installed in your backyard.
Absolutely.
Okay, what happens if I have a real tight city lot? Can I still take advantage of geothermal technology?
Yeah, that's a great point. Vertical loops can really be installed anywhere because they take up such a limited space. So whether it's through your driveway, in your front yard, in your backyard, as long as you've got room to get the rig into your site, we can put in a vertical loop system and you could take advantage of a geothermal system.
Yeah, and so in a city, in a country, retrofit application or new construction, it's great technology. Does that pretty much take care of the different looping options?
Well, actually there's a couple more that we haven't touched on, and one is what we call a pond loop. And if you were in a rural setting and had a pond that was relatively close to your home and large enough, we actually can sink the coils at the bottom of the pond and utilize that as our heat source, because even in the middle of winter, Stu, that pond is still about 35 to 39 degrees, which has plenty of energy to heat your home very efficiently.
That's amazing.
And then the last one would be a relatively new trend, which is called directional boring. And what we're doing is drilling horizontally at about 15 to 20 feet underground. So we're getting into that stable earth temperature. But the nice thing about that technology is we're not tearing up as much of the yard, and we can get into a much smaller lot. We can go underneath things. We can also bore into the home without having to tear up all the landscaping, and if they had a pool or a deck or something, we can get underneath that into the mechanical room with that technology. So our industry is definitely advancing, and those are some of the great ways to get geothermal installed.
Stay tuned. We'll see the inside components next when we continue with today's Home Remodeler.
Hi, I'm Johnny Miller with Hopkins County Heating and Air, your local Geocomfort dealer. Geothermal systems have the lowest life cycle cost of all heating and cooling systems on the market today. Lower maintenance costs and longer life expectancies of geothermal units will save you money. Call today at Hopkins County Heating and Air at 825-2750. Hopkins County Heating and Air, your local Geocomfort dealer, featuring the latest in geothermal technology. Geocomfort systems, geothermal made better.
In our last segment, we learned the theory behind geothermal technology and how these systems utilize the free energy that's stored in the earth to heat and cool a home. Now let's learn how these incredibly efficient systems can be utilized in both country and city locations by using different looping options, as we continue with Brian Erlob from Geocomfort.
Well, Stu, we're down here in the basement of this home. So what we've got here is we've got about an 8-year-old home with an existing furnace, as you can see right here, and we've added a split system geothermal to this old furnace.
You know, as I look at it, you say to the old furnace, it doesn't look all that old. 8 years old, you said, yet these homeowners are opting to replace it? Why would they do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is only an 8-year-old furnace, and the reason why they're upgrading is for energy efficiency. That furnace was maybe 92 to 94% efficient. Well, our geothermal systems are running between 300 to 400% efficiency.
Now, how can something be 300 to 400% efficient? I know we brought this up in previous shows, but I still have a hard time wrapping my mind around that concept.
Well, that's another great question, and it is hard to understand, but what we're doing is we're taking energy from the ground, which we already saw the ground loop outside. Okay, we're transferring that energy into this box. This box then intensifies that heat through electrical energy and compression, and then moves that energy over to the coil over the furnace, which then heats the home. So that's all happening at about 300%, or what that means is for every dollar you spend to run the electrical device, you're getting $3 to $4 worth of free energy from the ground and then delivered to the home.
Wow, it's a great system, and again, a great case in point of you have an existing home, even if it's not that old a furnace, look into geothermal. It's going to be more efficient, more comfortable, and really it helps our communities as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really the biggest benefit. Yes, you save energy, you save on your utility costs, but the future in having energy security is really a big deal.
And that benefits everybody, not just the homeowner, but our communities as well. Okay, I want to get into the components here, but first, how did we bring the piping in from the loop field that we saw in our last segment? How did we get it into the basement and over to these components?
Yeah, it's a great question because there's a lot of different ways you can do that. This particular site worked out well where we're just coming into the corner of the basement and then running the piping up overhead along with the ductwork and down into our flow center and through the system. In other situations, we may be able to bring it right up through the floor. In this situation, we had the opportunity just to bring it up overhead.
And you know, I didn't even notice that, but those pipes right there, there's two pipes, they're going to be tied into these components?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got one pipe coming in here and one here, so you basically just got an in and an out.
And then what am I looking at right here? If it comes into here, I take it these are the circulating pumps?
Yeah, that's right. These are the circulating pumps that move the fluid then through the loop field and then through the heat exchanger in the heat pump here. And then what we've got here is we've got the actual heat pump itself. So this has got a compressor inside, and again, this is where we intensify that heat in the heating season and deliver it to the space. Then in the cooling season, we take that energy and we put it out to the loop field.
Yeah, a lot of people think of geothermal technology being for the heating season, because here in the upper Midwest, that's generally when we're calling on our HVAC system, but it does do equally as efficient job at cooling a house?
Yeah, absolutely. They're excellent with cooling as well. Usually about twice as efficient as a standard air conditioner that's sitting outside on that 95-degree day, because we're, again, talking about the ground, which is about 50 to 60 degrees in the summertime.
And that's another good point. You don't have any of the equipment outside. You don't have to be looking at it. It's all self-contained right here.
Yep, that's exactly right. And then what we've got here is we've got a preheat tank. And what this is really, anytime we're operating this system, either heating or cooling the home, we're generating hot water into this tank that's going to help them with their domestic water use. So that way their gas system doesn't run as much.
This is a more efficient way of doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. We could take it right to the gas water heater, but because the gas water heater recovers so quickly, you won't get the full benefit of the hot water generator. So we put a preheat tank in, and then anytime this is running, it's going to heat this tank and do it at its own free will. So then we've got this stored here, then that tops off the existing water heater.
Wow, so as a byproduct of the heating and cooling of a geothermal system, by adding this tank, you're able to preheat it, pump that over to the existing gas water heater. That allows that gas water heater to be more efficient, I would think, because it doesn't have to work as hard to heat the water.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've seen anywhere from about 50 to 80% savings in hot water usage by doing it this way.
Okay, well, this is a great example. We get to see some of the split components in this system where it's a retrofit application. Why don't we head out and take a look at some other components that are available for different situations?
That sounds great.
Stick around. We'll visit another home that's using geothermal to learn how these systems operate with such high efficiencies when we continue with today's Home Remodeler.
Hi, I'm Johnny Miller with Hopkins County Heating and Air, your local Geocomfort dealer. Geothermal systems have the lowest life cycle cost of all heating and cooling systems on the market today. Lower maintenance costs and longer life expectancies of geothermal units will save you money. Call today at Hopkins County Heating and Air at 825-2750. Hopkins County Heating and Air, your local Geocomfort dealer, featuring the latest in geothermal technology. Geocomfort systems, geothermal made better.
So far in today's show, we've learned about geothermal technology, the different looping options, and the inside components that can heat and cool a home with 300% efficiencies. But how does it all happen? Well, let's finish up today's show with our geothermal specialist, Brian Erlob from Geocomfort, who will explain how these amazing systems operate.
Well, Stuart, I wanted to bring you out to another location here. And again, this is another existing home who opted for geothermal technology.
Kind of following that trend we talked about, that even if you have an existing home, it's not just for new construction. You can take advantage of geothermal technology no matter how old your home is.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this setting, again, we've got some acreage here, so they opted for a horizontal loop, and they did it a little bit differently. We did a racetrack loop here instead of a slinky. But again, we're harnessing the free energy from the earth, bringing that into the home.
Okay, retrofit application, similar components to what we just saw?
Actually, Stu, they opted to do things a little bit differently. Why don't we go downstairs and take a look? Let's go ahead and take these off and see what's inside.
Oh, this is a nice clean system. It looks a little different than what we were just looking at.
Yeah, that's right, Stu. This is a little bit different, even though we are here again on a retrofit application. They had a little bit older system here that they opted to remove the entire system and go in with a complete packaged geothermal system rather than keeping the gas furnace and adding on geothermal. They just went with one complete system.
Sure, and as I look up here, they're utilizing the existing ductwork. So again, a retrofit isn't all that difficult when you're talking about geothermal technology.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, one of the questions I get asked all the time, and we kind of touched on it out at the loop field, is how a system operates. How can this be 300 to 400% efficient? So let's walk through the components and talk about the magic of the compressor.
Absolutely. Well, this is our brand new Compass Series product from Geocomfort, and there's a lot of innovation in this machine, but we'll go through the actual components and go through how this works. So really what we have inside the box is we've got three major components. We've got a compressor, we've got a water to refrigerant heat exchanger, and we've got an air to refrigerant heat exchanger. So two heat exchangers. So the water to refrigerant heat exchanger in the heating mode is absorbing heat energy from that fluid that's being circulated from the ground.
And that's usually about 50 degrees, as we mentioned.
Yeah, 50 degrees all the way through down to 30 throughout the wintertime as we remove heat from the ground. And that energy then gets absorbed into the refrigeration system, and that's part of the compressor. So through that heat exchange process, we absorb the energy. The compressor then intensifies that energy through heat of compression. Of course, that's electric driven, okay? And once that energy then is intensified, we take it to the second heat exchanger, which now we blow air across, which releases all that heat energy into the airstream, into the ductwork, and then obviously is heating the home.
So of course, when you use the term intensify, what that compressor is doing is raising the temperature of that refrigerant up to a temperature, say, what, about 100 degrees, 120 degrees, somewhere in there, so that then that can be distributed through the house, because you wouldn't want 50-degree air temperature being circulated through during the wintertime.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Stu. We've got 50-degree, 40-degree groundwater coming in. This is intensifying it to about 100 degrees, which then will keep your home nice and comfortable at 70, 72 degrees.
Okay, what about in the summertime when we want to cool our homes?
Well, that's a great question. In this machine here, there's a valve called a reversing valve, and what that simply does is reverses the flow of energy. We still have the two heat exchangers. Now we're blowing warm air across this heat exchanger, absorbing the heat energy again. We're still intensifying because we've got to remove the energy through with the compressor, and we're taking all that heat energy now and putting it into this heat exchanger, which is dumping out into the nice cool ground. So instead of having an air conditioner sitting outside your home working hard when it's 95, our air conditioner is working at 50-degree ground temperature, so it makes it more efficient.
Now you mentioned this is the new Compass series. What sets it apart from previous versions?
Well, that's a great question, and yeah, you're right. This is a new product by Geocomfort, and there's a lot of innovation in this product, and it kind of sets us apart in the industry. Number one is if you look at where the compressor is mounted right here, you notice it's up off the ground. What we've done here is we've mounted on top of the heat exchanger, which really takes in all the vibration and all the noise from the compressor and soaks that up to make it one of the quietest products on the market.
And I know that's very important for homeowners. The last thing you want is to install a very nice system like this, but to have it rattling or being noisy.
Absolutely. We've got a compressor now indoors versus outdoors, so we want to make sure it's very, very quiet for the homeowner. And another great feature that kind of sets us apart from the competition is this right here. Our heat exchanger is foamed in, okay, where a lot of people are wrapping it with tape. So what we've done is we've eliminated any corrosion and any condensation on that heat exchanger, which just gives us more reliability and longevity.
Yeah, I would think that could be very susceptible to condensation because you're bringing in cool temperatures and it might be warmer in the basement, and you know that could lead to condensation. So you're not going to have to worry about that being insulated.
Right, exactly. And a couple other things. As you can see here, we've mounted our control box and all our electronics up at eye level, where most products all have those down at the bottom, so now you're working on your knees. Now again, this is maybe not as much for the consumer, but this is fantastic for the service technician and helps them be able to troubleshoot or diagnose any issues that may arise, but everything is here up at eye level. And the other big thing that sets Geocomfort apart from everybody else is how we design our systems, really more focused on the heating dominant climates. Overall, we've got the highest heating outputs. And of course, the biggest thing then is the upgrade in efficiencies and capacities. We lead the industry in heating capacity and across the board overall in efficiencies. So with the quietness, the reliability, and the efficiencies, this really makes this product one of the best in the market.
Well, it makes sense. A company, as we've seen on today's show, that continues to evolve, keep pushing the industry, making it more consumer friendly, more contractor friendly. At the end, it's a win-win for everybody involved.
Absolutely.
Okay, what about the domestic hot water side? Are they taking advantage of that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. They took advantage of that as well. We've got a desuperheater connected on this machine, or a hot water generator. And so anytime it heats and cools their home, we're making some hot water for their domestic use. And the great thing about that in cooling, like a day like today, a nice hot day, we're taking all that heat energy, instead of dumping it out on the ground, we're going to take some of that and put it in their water heater because they've already paid to cool their home. That's free energy.
Yeah, it is free, so you might be paying a little bit, a lot more cost effective in the winter, but it's a real big bonus in the summertime. Virtually all your domestic hot water can come from the desuperheater at no cost to you.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, what about the operation of the system? Is there a learning curve for a homeowner that installs a geothermal system?
Well, that's a great question because everybody thinks it's so much different than a conventional system, but really you have the same typical thermostat on the wall you would normally have. You set your comfort range, you set it to heat, to cool, and it just does what you're asking it to do. So there really isn't anything different as far as the operation, and again, even the maintenance that we talked about.
Well, as we've seen on today's show, whether you're in the city, in the country, a new home, existing home, look into geothermal technology and take advantage of all that free energy being stored in the earth. I appreciate you coming on and walking us through it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
For more information on geothermal technology or to find a dealer near you, contact geocomfort.com.
Well, we're all out of time for this week's show. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll see you again next time on Today's Home Remodeler.
For more information about today's topic and upcoming episodes of Today's Home Remodeler, please visit these websites. The preceding program was sponsored by the Today's Home Remodeler television network.